67. The Dying State, Part 1. The anti-history stance of the 20th century and its education is a logical consequence of a statism. History is assumed to end in a final order, world communism, the Great Society, or some like order, ending time and development. Behind this fact lies a religious factor. It is often assumed that the late medieval pietism was a forerunner of the Reformation. Theologically, this pietism had little in common with the Reformation. At one point, however, its contribution was substantial. The laity were deeply involved and paved the way for the lay revolts which marked both the Reformation especially and also the Counter-Reformation. The centre of religious power early in the medieval era was in the regular clergy, the monastic clergy. Although new monastic orders from time to time revitalized the church, the initiative shifted to the regular clergy, and with that shift, the Vatican also increased its power. Then lay orders began to take precedence, and the pre-Reformation era saw many such groups. For a century and a half, Europe, to a degree, was under the influences of the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation, but by 1660, the power shifted clearly to the civil powers. Soon, too, the influence of pietism began to dominate the life of the Church, and the withdrawal of the Church from social relevance was underway. Pietism was also tied to nationalistic sentiments in some areas. Zelensky has very tellingly summed up what happened in these words. Previously, reality was structured much more meaningfully in a heavenward direction, in unquestioning devotion to the Lord God, his local deputies and saints, and the eternal verities. With the crack-up of this system of belief, the nation became both possible and necessary. This shift was a gradual one. Not until the French Revolution was it dramatically apparent. After that, unbelief and positivism were increasingly vocal. Julian Jaynes tells us how vocal and blatant the new mood was. This secularism of science became rough and earnest in 1842 in Germany in a famous manifesto by 4 brilliant young psychologists. They signed it like priests in their own blood and angrily resolved that no forces other than common psychochemical ones would be considered in their scientific activity. This was the most coherent and shrill statement of scientific materialism up to that time, and enormously influential. Devotion shifted insofar as many people were concerned from the church to the state. There were and are still many pilgrimages to holy sites, but, for example, no religious centre in the Western world has commanded the number of annual visitors which the grave of President John F. Kennedy commands. Even more, Abraham Lincoln, the martyred Christ of democracy's passion play, has become comparable to the saints of old in the American pantheon. For many, too, over the years, the U.S. Federal Union has been like a church and an article of faith. For a time, an American creed was promoted. The conflict in the Western nations between the people and the intellectuals is related to this. George Orwell in the late 1940s wrote, "In societies such as ours, it is unusual for anyone describable as intellectual to feel a very deep attachment to his own country." This did not mean a break, however, with the statist dream. The intellectuals believed and believe in an ideal future state. The common man is still more attached to the present state or nation. However, even as faith in the church and its vision of order gave way to the civil and statist hope, so now the civil dream is fading. The mother country or the fatherland have steadily receded as the state and its bureaucracy have become an aggressive and brutal power. The increasing powerlessness of the citizen makes him as zealous for the state as were the late Romans. Rome progressively gave citizenship to more and more people until virtually all free men were Roman citizens, but at the same time, it stripped them of property, money, and power. For many peoples in the 20th century, legal quote-unquote rights have greatly increased on paper, while actual freedom has rapidly diminished. The result is a crisis for the modern state, one which it is not clearly aware of. The late medieval church had a clear awareness of particular problems, but not of the growing shift from the 1200s on of power to the state. The modern state assumes as a natural fact what is in reality a cultural and shifting fact, that is, the priority of the state in the life of man. It sees itself as the new and indispensable church of man. It is necessary for man's salvation, it believes. Its judges go robed like priests, its heads of state issue their encyclicals, and the world around them grows more weary and more cynical. The state or civil government can be a ministry of justice under God, or it can become a parasite. In time, every parasitic institution collapses because it devalues life for those whom it should serve. A parasite which destroys the host body also perishes. The mistletoe which covers and kills the oak tree dies also. In 3rd century AD Rome, debased coins were destroying confidence in the Roman state. Increasingly, those who made money quickly reinvested it in other things to avoid losing their profits. Land became the investment for many. As the tyranny of Rome increased, not even land was a good area of investment because taxes eroded wealth in any and every form. As a result, Rome collapsed. The wandering barbarians found limited resistance because the will to fight was gone. Few Romans felt that Rome was worth fighting for. More rapidly than in the days of Rome, we are approaching a like condition. The peoples of the West love their lands. They do not love their states. Marcus Aurelius, AD 121 to 180, is revered by statists as a wise philosopher-king. He was in reality a pathetic figure who insistently expanded his dream of the state. For him, as for Aristotle, his nature was rational and political. Not only did he believe strongly in the Roman Empire, but in a world state, a cosmic state. The quote-unquote gods and men, he said, are fellow citizens of the universe. The people hoped for less and less from the Roman Empire, while Marcus Aurelius was viewing the whole universe as one empire. Not surprisingly, when Rome fell, cities also died. Men turned away from the statist dream. Historians sometimes depict the Frankish and other Germanic rulers as crude and brutal, as they sometimes were. The Roman rulers, however, had been sophisticated and efficient in their brutality and power. When we read The Governor of God by the presbyter Salvian, we can understand why some men saw the fall of Rome as a vindication of God and of his word.